in our virtual space. So if we can go to the next slides, please. Just a reminder, we have closed captions in English and in Spanish. English closed captions are available within Zoom and YouTube. Users can follow this link to view both English and Spanish captions in a separate browser window. Next slide, please. Reminder as to how you can access closed captions. At the bottom middle of your screen, you should see a menu of options. If you can't see the menu, hover your mouse over the bottom middle of the screen, the square CC icon towards the right side of the menu to toggle captions on. Click the submenu arrow to access more settings, including language, font color, and font size. Next slide, please. In an effort to continue to center equity, there is an ASL interpreter in addition to closed captioning. To make sure the interpreter is always visible, please right-click your video and select Spotlight Video. For those watching on YouTube, when we screen share, you will be able to see the slideshow, closed captioning, and the ASL interpreter. You will still be able to hear different people speaking, but may not see them. Next slide, please. There will be an opportunity to provide brief public input later in the meeting, roughly around 9:50 a.m. Verbal public comment will be welcome in the Zoom webinar during the designated time with the option to turn on your camera. Please use the link located in the meeting description on the YouTube meeting page or on the IBR CBAG meeting webpage. Commenters will not be allowed to share their screens and will be removed from the room once the public comment period concludes. If you'd like to provide public comment via phone, please dial 646-931-3860 or 408-638-0968. You'll want to remember to enter meeting ID number 823-5803-3783, passcode 385815. Please dial *9 to raise your hand. After you are invited to speak, please dial *6 to unmute yourself. Next slide, please. Eric, what's the safety protocol here at the court building?
If city staff has wish to share anything for their building safety,
staff.
we don't have anyone.
City important staff in the room today.
So get our.
Just your stuff's there.
Okay. Okay, next slide. Just a reminder of our group agreements. It's for us to put relationships first, for us to keep focused on our common goal, to notice the power dynamics in the room, for us to always remember to keep space for multiple truths and norms, be kind and brave, for us always to be practicing racially biased systems and processes, that this is a learning space for everyone, for us to look for learning. Advisory group members will turn cameras on as you share the specific space. We ask for you to do that. Please take care of your personal needs as they come up. Just let us know, the facilitator or staff, if you step away. Virtual participants can participate by taking written notes and using the raise hand and speak features for active engagement. We always want to remember to welcome diverse perspectives. It's okay for us to disagree, for us to move up and assume and have good intentions. Next up. Okay, we'd like to ask our director of the program administrator, Greg Johnson, for opening remarks. Greg.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome. This is our last Community Benefits Advisory Group meeting for the year. This team has been meeting for, I believe, a little over a year. So thank you for all the efforts that have been put in and look forward to a excellent meeting. So thank you.
Great. With that, I'd like to ask the mayor for.
Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. I see we have about 4 more meetings to get to completion here. Let's make every one of them count. Thank you so very much.
Great. Emily, why don't we kick it off to you?
All right. Well, thank you. If we could go to the next slide, please.
Great. So let's start with our introductions for our folks online. So if you could please have all of our CBAG members virtually, please raise your hand so that we can make it easier to identify and call on you. And then we'll go around and share your name, organizational affiliation, or at-large status and your pronouns if you'd like. And then our check-in question is, what is a future hobby you would like to start? I can go ahead and kick us off. I'm Emily Thomas Peralta. I am the co-facilitator, CBAG lead, and my hobby I would like to start. I've been interested in getting into boxing as a workout, and so I've been starting a little bit on that, and I think that's something I'd love to continue and maybe take some lessons or something. So now I will kick it over to Janie and then Holly.
Janie Haygood, Chair of the Vancouver Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, she, her pronouns. Something that I would love to start doing is, I used to do it when I was young, and that's play the piano, and I would love to start getting back into that.
Great, thank you. Let's go to Holly and then Darcy.
Holly Williams, City of Vancouver community member from our Oneida neighborhood. She, her, boy, future hobby, maybe playing like Congo drums. Yeah, that always looks like a lot of fun.
Very cool. Let's go to Darcy and then Tom.
Good morning, everyone. Darcy Hoffman, Director of Business Services at Workforce Southwest Washington, representing the Columbia Willamette Workforce Collaborative. It's a mouthful. She, her pronouns. Future hobbies. I tend to try really hard just to do the things that I want to do now and not, not wait. But one thing is, I years ago taught myself how to crochet. And I used to crochet all the time, and I quit doing it. And I have so much cool yarn. So hopefully someday I'll start crocheting again.
Great, thank you so much. Let's go to Tom and then Aiden.
Hi, Tom Hickey, North Portland Neighborhoods. I'm also on the Citizens Advisory Group, and to a certain extent liaison between these two committees. Future hobbies, I'm pretty busy with the hobbies I have right now, which is learning my ukulele and hopefully eventually performing more than I do now, and gardening, I would say.
Great, thank you so much. Aiden and then Scott.
Good morning, everyone. Aiden Gronauer, Assistant Director of Civil Rights and Equity for the Interstate Bridge Replacement Program, supporting both DOTs. Future hobby for me, I'd really like to get more into woodworking, especially the kind of fine carpentry skills again. I took a little stab at it a while ago and like to get back to it as a hobby. So,
Great, thank you. A lot of cool ideas today. Let's go to Scott and then Michael.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott McCollum, he, him pronouns. I'm the superintendent at the Washington State School for the Blind. Future hobby that I would like to, I think like Janie, I used to play the piano and I would love to get back into playing the piano. So I think that'll have to be it. And also I have to apologize, but I need to leave at 10:30. So sorry, I'll step out.
Thank you. Let's go to Michael and then we'll go to Serena.
Hello, everyone. Michael Strauss with Kimco Realty, owner of the Jansen Beach Center, representing small and large retail businesses in our center and across Hayden Island. He, him pronouns. I have two future hobbies, and they're a bit, shall we say, aspirational. I would love to master levitation and alchemy.
Very cool. Okay, let's go to Sarita and then Peter.
Serena, I think you're muted.
Oh, that's like Zoom audio problem. We had this with somebody the other day.
Okay, I think we may need to come back to you, Serena. Apologies.
How about that? Can you hear me
Oh,
now?
there you go. Perfect.
Okay. Serena Stoudemire Wesley, Assistant Director at ODOT for Civil Rights and Equity, and future hobby is to get my golf game back in shape.
Great, thank you. Let's go to Peter and then Anthony.
Good morning, everybody. Peter Fells. I'm a Vancouver resident. I think I'm representing the Alliance for Community Engagement, which is a coalition of environmental groups here on the north side of the river. I retired 7 years ago and started doing those hobbies I wanted to do. So I don't have any more future hobbies. Like some of you, I picked up guitar, which I had done when I was a child, and I've been taking guitar lessons, and I just want to continue working on that. My teacher told me he had another student he'd been teaching for 14 years, so I don't see an end. And my main hobby is just staying healthy right now.
Great, thank you. It sounds like we might have a CBAG band forming here. We've got almost every instrument covered, so maybe we just need bass and we're good. We'll go to Anthony and then Greg.
Hey everyone, good morning. Anthony Samperio, Work Systems, the Workforce Development Board from Multnomah County in the city of Portland. I think a hobby, there's been a couple that I've heard. I used to play the saxophone as a kid. It would be great to pick that back up. So maybe we'll start a ska band. And also golf. Golf is something that I want to add to my professional skills, I guess, right?
Awesome, thank you so much. And then Greg, let's go to you to finish us off here.
So Greg Johnson, Program Administrator, he, him. I used to play chess a lot when I was younger, and that's something that I like to pick up as my time becomes more my time.
Great, thank you. And Jonna, we'll go to you for our in the room introductions.
Great, thank you. We'll start over here with Farley.
Morning, everybody. Farley Winters, she, her pronouns, and I'm with LSW Architects in Vancouver and also a resident of the Arneta neighborhood. 2025 is going to be the year of weightlifting. Working to make that 6-pack and 18-pack, that sort of thing. So I've never been trained on how to do it, and I think this is the year I'm going to try. Also.
Courtney Collier with Columbia Corridor Association. My apologies, I'm going to have to leave early too. I think that what I'd like to take up is napping. I've heard, but seriously, I think I'd like to, get my glider pilot's license and do fly fishing, which really matches right up with Michael's comments about levitation and alchemy. So, right in line with what Mike wants.
I'm Ryan Winsheimer. I'm the ODOT Regional Manager and have my private pilot's license. And I would actually love to get out and do that more. Scuba, I'd love to do that more. I'm gonna take up Serena and Anthony. We're gonna go play some golf. But the number one hobby that I haven't been doing much of that I'd really like to be better at and learn more about is cooking. Enjoy it. I just need to get a little more practice.
Carly Francis, Washington State DOT, and the Southwest Region Administrator. All of those things are good. I guess for sort of things I'd like to do more of is singing, because I grew up doing that. And also I have a lot of family folks who really enjoy dance in all its varieties, and that's like awkward space for me. Although I do physical things, but some sort of dance would probably be a good mental activity.
That's awesome. Good morning, everyone. Co-facilitator of Community Benefits Advisory Group, John O'Bell, he, him pronouns. A hobby I've always wanted to take up is to learn how to fly fish. So sounds like we've got some
we'll get together.
Emerging fly fisher people here.
Good morning, everyone. I'm McInerney Ogum here for the city of Vancouver, she, her. I'm developing a lovely hobby. It's called the gentle art of Swedish death cleaning, and I'm getting much better at it.
Catherine Kelly, City of Vancouver Policy Advisor. I have a ukulele that's been sitting around too long, hasn't been played, and I also want to do fly fishing. So.
All right. You got to get a group here. Maybe find a guide.
Good morning, everyone. Priyadana Pal, City of Portland, Deputy City Administrators of Public Works, she, her pronouns. I want to say competitive napping, considering how busy our weeks have been. But really what I would like to do is community gardening that focuses on sustainable agriculture and challenge myself to use the locally sourced ingredients to cook my meals.
Morning, everyone. My name is Josh Todd. I'm on the IBR Equity team and the Senior Director of Equity Research and Community Engagement at Espousal Strategies. I use he, him pronouns. I'm going to go with Serena and bring an old hobby back. I used to be a marathon runner and I never got to run the New York Marathon and I still want to. So maybe in my 50s, we'll do marathon running again.
Hi everyone, Eric Tring with the IBR Equity team. If I could have a hobby, probably carpentry, doing some woodwork at home. That'd be fun.
Great. If we can get the agenda back up here. Slides. The agenda real quickly. Public comment. We'll have public comment here. Just a moment. We'll receive a program update. And then we're gonna really unpack the review and refine of the potential benefits in mobility and accessibility. This is a continuation from our last meeting, as well as physical design, what we're referring to as sort of our tranche 3. We'll have a quick break, and then time permitting, we would love to have an opportunity to confirm potential benefits recommendations in tranche 3. And then close and have a discussion about next steps. Do we have anyone sign up for public comment?
We have no one in the virtual waiting room at this time.
Okay, maybe I'll, if you could go to the next slide, in case we've got folks watching, I'll go through these slides real quick. Just a reminder to make a verbal comment. You'll want to dial 646-931-3860 or 408-638-0968. Meeting ID number is 823-5803-3783. Passcode is 385815. Please dial *9 to raise your hand. I'll call on you to provide your public comment. You'll want to be reminded to dial *6 to unmute yourself. Please provide your name and affiliation. We'll have roughly 10 minutes for public comment. Next slide, please. As a reminder, if you'd like to offer written public comment, fill out the comment form on the program website or email your comments to info@interstatebridge.org with CBAG Public Comment in the subject line. You can also offer it via a voice recording. That's 360-859-0494 or 503-897-9218 or 1-888-503-6735. Please state CBAG public comment in your message. Written comments need to explicitly say CBAG public comment in the subject line or in the body of the message for them to be identified and distributed to CBAG members. All written comments must be received prior to 48 hours in advance of each upcoming meeting in order to be distributed to advisory group members. Comments received after that point will be distributed to members in advance of the next meeting. And just a note for our CBAG members, we did not receive any public comment since our last meeting. Do we have anyone signed up?
Still no one.
Okay. All right. With that, we'd like to have Greg Johnson, Program Administrator, offer us a program update.
All right. Thanks. Thanks, Janelle. And I quickly am going to run through this. We concluded the 60-day public comment period back November 18th. We received over 3,400 submissions. And so many of those submissions have multiple comments or questions. So we think we're going to be over close to 5,000 overall comments, individual comments. So, but team is working on categorizing those, and we will be putting out a summary of those comments sometime early in next year. But we continue to do presentations beyond the public comment period. We will continue to talk to the neighborhood associations and any group that wants to hear about this program. I was just up in Bremerton, Washington, speaking to the Design Build forum of AGC, ACEC, and WashDOT. So it was very good questions and a good update to them. But we are also working with our federal partners to refine and set our schedule to get us to a final supplemental document. So those conversations are ongoing. We're looking forward in early February of having conversation with the new administration. There's a fly-in for the state DOTs, hopefully to meet the leadership of USDOT. So we're hoping to get some time on their calendar to talk specifically about IBR. Other than that, I need to give you guys a heads up. I have to leave early because I need to be at the airport to get on a plane, but I will listen as long as I can. So if there's any questions or comments, I am open to answer.
Great. Any questions or comments for Greg? Hearing none. Next slide, please. Right. Actually, at this point, Emily, we're going to turn over to you to walk us through the tranches here. And just as a reminder, we have material here in the room for folks on the 11.5 by 17. This is going to be primarily what we'll be working through. Folks in our virtual space, you've received this material via email, but we'll also be working it through in this room via screen. Josh will be making red line edits that we will share after the break. So Emily, with that.
All right, thank you very much. And yeah, Fabian, if you could please pull up our chart here and just a little bit of framing. So today our goal is to finish working through the review refine of tranche 3. We started it last month in our meeting. There's about 8 of them altogether. We got through 3 of them last month. We'll revisit those and share the updates that we made based on our discussions with all of you. And really our goal is for us to finish up the refinement and then move to decision making. Part of the reason we're really needing to get that done in this meeting today is because these are really kind of the last recommendations that are potentially time sensitive and related to our design team's deadlines, and we want to make sure we're able to get these to the proper team so that way they can incorporate it into their work and meet those program deadlines. And so as we move through our review refine, I'll just ask that if we have any kind of language editing or wordsmithing, we kind of work through all of that during this time so that when we move to the voting, we can get through that pretty smoothly. So with that, Fabian, if we could actually please pull up the other document, which is our chart, that would be great. Great, thank you very much. Okay, so we will
Could you all make that maybe just a little bit larger? I don't know about others, but the older I get, I just can't see as well. We can make it just a little bit larger.
It's just you, John.
Yeah, I know.
Nobody else experiences that.
I'm just saying, it's like with these prescriptions might be,
It's all her.
pretty much deeper. Not
Yeah,
now,
right.
Yeah.
Ditto.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so we'll get started with Mobility and Accessibility 21. And so our language here is for design team to consider integration of acoustic enhancements in design to better accommodate individuals with visual impairments, ensuring path support. And so some notes that I had from our technical teams around this to kind of help us for context of this conversation is just a reminder that, it is very early in the design process for, the design team to really have more specifics around the details about the particular materials. But, as we've had in previous recommendations, we can add, this sort of language as considerations that this group would like them to make. And then another piece that we would love to hear from folks is maybe a little bit of clarity on whether this is specifically related to any concerns about noise impacts from traffic or other considerations like that. So with that, I'll open it up to the group for discussion.
Thoughts, questions on MA 21?
This is Scott from the School for the Blind, and I imagine some of this might have come from something I said at some point, but I don't fully understand it, what exactly this means.
Thank you, Scott. Yeah, actually it did. I recall it was from a small group conversation. And so we would love any thoughts you have on how we could maybe adapt the language to be a little bit more clear. But I think it was around considerations of any potential noise related issues that there could be. And if there was if there were certain materials or design considerations that could maybe mitigate some of those challenges, in particular for folks who have limited visual.
Got Farley in the room here as well, who would like to chime in.
Yeah, take it away, Farley.
Okay, well, feel free to jump in. I was going to encourage us to maybe broaden this and also stay specific. So if we were to refer to these as sensory enhancements rather than specifically acoustic enhancements, and then we could be more specific about auditory, touch, smell, and other senses that humans have. Because I think, if I remember, I think the goal here was that we're trying to make the pathway as inclusive as possible and recognizing people have different abilities. And so this one's cueing in specifically on vision, but I think there's other impairments as well that we want to address, but I don't want to lose the focus on vision.
I like what you said, Farley. I agree wholeheartedly with the sensory impairments piece. I don't think acoustic enhancements is anything that is specific to people who are blind or low vision, but sensory enhancements would be. And I think this probably came out of a discussion about where I brought up our building, where we built in different colors and textures into elements of the design. Certainly acoustics were one consideration, but I like Farley said, I think sensory enhancements for all people would be better.
So I'm hearing striking the word acoustics and replacing it with sensory.
Yep. And then I think you could, if we wanted to be specific, we could like parentheses or bracket what some of those might be as examples so that we don't, we don't lose the specificity.
You got that, Josh? Okay.
Is there specific examples we want to include?
So I would say auditory, touch, olfactory or smell.
I would add in proprioceptive. That could be a piece of it. I think, and I would suggest moving away from focusing on just people who are blind or low vision and just consider all abilities, or I mean, people, if you want to call out people with disabilities, you could do that, but
accommodate individuals with disabilities.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't see this isn't specific just to the people who are blind or low vision.
Right.
There are sensory enhancements that honestly could benefit everybody and people with various disabilities.
Okay.
I think Farley brings a good point. As we generalize it, we also need to put it, because I started to get lost. And honestly, this is exactly the question I had when I first read it. And I thought, well, wait a minute, what about deaf people? And then I thought about it a little bit longer, and I thought, okay, if I'm walking across the bridge with my wife, she's just going to take her hearing aid out and turn it off and enjoy it more than me. So I'm not sure that you need to do any, in this case, I think we're talking about an environment that has a lot of noise. So for those with difficulties based on sound, that need sound, they're going to have more difficulties in this case. So I kind of, that's why I didn't object to it and say, well, wait a minute, maybe we should focus on visual impairments. I like that, but again, I like the idea of kind of saying sensory enhancements and for impairments of all types. But then what is it we're talking about doing? You know, we lose that. So
I recommend we stay away from just categorizing people as people with impairments. Generally, my experience with people with disabilities is that's not language they embrace. It feels deficit minded. So people with disabilities is fine, but I'd stay away from using impairments as a category.
Courtney, do you think that your concern is satisfied by just striking the visual impairments by saying disabilities?
It is, but I agree with Harley, we need to put in some examples.
Right, but
Because
that's
if
the
I'm
EG.
reading this, if I'm staff reading this going, I have no idea which one.
Exactly, the EG.
Yes.
Parentheses, okay. Yep, and we captured that.
And it looks like we've got Tom here with his hand up.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm trying to understand what it means ensuring path support. That phrase at the end. I don't see what that is even trying to communicate.
So would the recommendation be maybe to strike that language?
Well, I'd like to either rephrase it so that it expresses its intent more clearly. But I don't know where it came from or what it's even trying to say. I'm assuming that it's trying to say to improve the experience on the multi-use path, but I don't know.
We had Carly and then we'll go to Farley.
It seems like it's trying to say wayfinding generally, which is a pretty large concept, but people are gonna move on the path, they're gonna move on the sidewalks, they're gonna try to cross traffic, et cetera. And so it's just supporting clear wayfinding.
And I would just add to that, I think for me, what the word that comes to mind is accessibility, but we're talking about more than like nuts and bolts accessibility. We're talking about creative solutions that are an enhancement of the baseline.
I can give an example where something like this could be for people who are blind or low vision, but let's say you have an open expanse of concrete that there's not a very clear path at any one point, but it ultimately leads to a few paths. You can build in truncated domes into the concrete that would help someone who's blind or low vision figure out where the actual path is. They use those, as you know, at street crossings, but if you were to come to the School for the Blind, we have them outlining a space around our parking lot so that people who are blind or low vision walking with their cane know that they're passing into a parking lot, or in the case of my example, some other open expanse of space. But there's lots of things like that. That's for the blind. I heard the deaf being brought up and what they might need. And I know they prefer wider hallways. If you visit the new School for the Deaf, they have wider hallways, wider stairways to facilitate communication as two people are walking with one another and signing back and forth. There's all kinds of different elements of that could contribute to universal design that would make such a space more accessible to people with disabilities.
Other thoughts on MA 21? We're capturing these notes and kind of massage language.
And I would just add on to that, the truncated domes, I think, are a great solution, but they're kind of, again, like the baseline. And so having different textures in your paving material that are also artistic, there's a dual benefit to that. And so I don't want to be too specific, but I think we're really relying on a design team that understands these issues and that they can take this language and interpret that. And so maybe a component of this too is then consulting with those communities again, once there's more specific design to ensure it's meeting their needs.
And thanks, Farley, on that point and a couple others raised here. You know, after we have all the recommendations together, you know, there are some, of course, that align that we've maybe previously covered. And, you know, you can see kind of here what we've done with Tranche 3. We've already reorganized them a bit. And so I expect that we will continue to do that because we do have a previous recommendation around using universal design and some of these other pieces, as well as consulting with individuals, you know, with differing needs and that being part of the design conversation. So I just wanted to call that out, that we do have recommendations that cover these different places and that we will be intentional about organizing so that the places that overlap are reflected.
Okay, Emily, go ahead.
One more comment. I think Emily had mentioned that the language that says to consider Do we need that, or can we say design team to integrate and just to be more direct about it to ensure it happens? Because considering it and doing it are two different things.
Our folks' thoughts on that?
I prefer do it, but
Yeah, I think when we prevaricate, that just makes it easier for other people to as well.
Ultimately, we'll hear back, obviously. I think these are all recommendations, but it's important for this group to offer their recommendations. Okay, Emily, let's go to the next one.
Okay, great. So MA 23 is to provide shelters, water, and bathrooms for different users of the multi-use pass, with a focus on those using pass for both recreation and essential travel. And just as a note, you know, I know we recently had similar conversations around the bathrooms and those pieces, and that being a challenge as they're not, you know, part of the program design and something that really would need to be implemented or maintained by project partners. So I just wanted to name that as we've, you know, to reconnect back to the previous conversations we've had, and yeah, open it up to discussion.
Thank you. Yes, I was going to mention kind of the same thing that you just did, but I also think there's an opportunity to integrate it with between 23 and 24. And looking at a more comprehensive sort of thinking about how those happen. So the 24 is really focused on connectivity, but it's also, there's already restrooms at some of these parks. There's already restrooms in some of these other areas. And so I think thinking about that comprehensively about how do those connect, what the spacing looks like, and Carly's point about wayfinding, I think there's a way to integrate all of that into sort of one thought.
Right.
I don't know.
Oh, absolutely, Ryan, because it's not the construction, it's the maintenance and operation. And you're not gonna be around to scrub the toilets. That will be the problem on our side. So the location of those and who will operate them and that whole thing is going to be a huge issue for maintenance. And the water can tie into that easily, but we have a big concern about that.
So, are folks supportive of Ryan's recommendation of combining MA 23 and MA 24, which speaks to much more comprehensive sort of, you know, recommendation? It's not just about the water and the bathrooms, it's about kind of this overarching component.
I think that's fine. I like that they do come together. That might be a lot to go into
Well,
one.
yeah, we have to wordsmith it, but the general concept would be to merge those two.
I'm not entirely in favor of that because the one is entirely about the bike trails and the mobility issues and the connectivity, whereas this is about features along the trails that are you know, if not provided by the IBR, or at least the accommodation of integrating, you know, other partners into the process is I think you know, what the heart of it is this idea that we make room for these services to be provided by the local you know, the local administration, the cities. And I think that's a different question than connectivity.
Thoughts on that?
I'm not quite sure. The city of Vancouver is not interested in, and I'm not sure where you're going, but if there's a toilet up on the bridge, we're not interested in monitoring it and cleaning it.
I don't think anybody's talking about a toilet on the bridge. I think it's more about making sure that at the connection points where there's public space, that there's an opportunity to include that sort of thing if the local jurisdiction is willing to do it. I think ultimately is the best we can hope for. But, you know, there's an integration in concept between what the bridge has to offer and what the paths have to offer. And, you know, in park spaces or wherever it is that you're going to be able to find a toilet, that those are included in the conversation when designing the bridge.
We've got Holly here.
And team, if you, hey, team, real quickly, if we can't see the faces in the room.
Who's talking?
Yeah, it'd be super helpful if we can maybe pull that down so
Thank
that we
you.
can see folks. Great.
So to use a sort of a concrete example, pardon the pun, I'm thinking sort of on the Vancouver side, there will be, I mean, there's already a restroom at the waterfront, and I believe at Terminal 1, the long-term plan would probably be to have one there as well. So, you know, but as I'm thinking about going over onto the Hayden Island side, you know, I can definitely see as time goes on, it's like, okay, where do users go? You know, but again, it's not, I agree, it's not going to be right on the bridge. So, to me, it's more like we need to consider the general sort of connectivity between the multimodal path and what's around it once you get off the bridge. And that's really kind of, I'm not phrasing that very well, but, you know, I guess I'm just kind of hoping that the partnerships are such, and I, you know, I know the city is really trying to be thoughtful about what does it look like down at the waterfront? What does it look like at Evergreen and so forth? So, yeah, those are no solutions, just some input.
Thanks, Holly. Let's go ahead and go to Peter.
Yeah, excuse me, thanks. I just wanted to add on the connectivity part, we need to make sure that the boundaries are clear and which jurisdictions have control over what aspects of the trails. I know here in Vancouver, we have some issues between city and county connections on at least one of the trails I'm familiar with, that, you know, we've got a problem. We need a crosswalk, and the city and the county can't agree who's responsible for putting that crosswalk in, because it's right at the boundary line. So just while we're doing connectivity, let's try to clarify what jurisdiction is responsible.
Other thoughts? Okay.
Well, it strikes me that it would be nice. So we have two things: the trail system, which we want to have really great intuitive connectivity to, and so I've got some language suggestions there. And the more we talk about it, the more I realize, yeah, okay, the water, bathrooms fall into that category, really. On the other hand, I don't want to lose sight of the potential for at least one rain/sun shelter on the bridge itself, particularly if somebody's walking across. That's a pretty good walk. It's raining, it's a hot day. You know, it would be pretty darn nice to have some spot where you can get some shelter. I don't know if we can pull it off from a design perspective, but it sure would be nice. So there may be two different issues going on there. What do we need on the bridge? What do we need in our trail connectivity?
Thanks so much for raising that, Corky. We did actually have a recommendation that did speak specifically about the shelter and the one we voted on last meetings, but I appreciate you raising that consideration. And definitely is connected to this. And I think that, you know, maybe to help us think through how we could combine these, but still be mindful is, you know, adapting the language a bit to where it's enhancing connectivity to trails, but then also along the lines of, you know, amenities near the multi-use path to include bathrooms, you know, water, something like that, so that we're referencing the connection to trails, but also explicitly to those needs.
I think we have Peter, and then we have Janie. Peter, Janie?
Yeah, I just didn't lower my hand. I spoke already.
Oh, okay.
So for me, one thing that I would add, since it seems pretty clear we don't want like bathrooms on the bridge, would be just signage educating and informing trail participants that this is your chance to get water, this is your chance to get to the bathroom before proceeding, just so that they're aware that those things will not be available on the bridge.
back to sort of the wayfinding element we heard earlier. Let's see, Tom, I think you were opposed to combining the two with the caveat that Emily put on that language. Would that satisfy your concern?
Yeah, I was putting a little thumbs up on the screen. I'm okay with that way of taking it, because I think that's really what we're trying to say is like, let's make sure that we're paying attention to these amenities as we exit and enter the bridge region.
Josh, have you captured enough to be able to combine those two? Okay, all right, folks, good with that?
I had.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one more comment there. So, MA 24, the last kind of, I don't know, stanza, making trails intuitive to traverse, that's kind of the purpose. And I'm wondering if it would make sense to incorporate, support, like if we said well supported with shelter, water, and bathrooms. So the idea being, we have an enhanced multimodal connectivity with trails. The purpose of that is to make trails intuitive and also make sure they're well supported. And we could kind of keep that open-ended, so it's not necessarily specific bathrooms on the bridge, but it's more the idea of that whole network is supported, and that could mean water, that could mean shelter, that could mean bathrooms.
EG.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so would that be really just making an addition to the end there? So making trails intuitive to traverse and well supported?
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
And then combining the MA 23 into that. Okay. I think we're good on that one.
All right. If we could please pull up the chart and we can go to our next one.
So before we leave that issue, you know, we are trying to assign responsibility for some of these things. So as we talk about shelters, water, bathroom, I can tell you those are things that DOTs do not do outside of rest areas. So we would need to figure out who is going to be responsible for the upkeep and the maintenance associated with such amenities.
And thank you for that, great. And that's actually a great reminder for me to mention to folks that our team is, you know, we had previously done a round of asset mapping conversations with our different program partners and other related parties to really look at what are some potential, you know, assets, programs, investments, other things that we could potentially connect with and could help us with some of these community benefits that are outside of the scope of what DOTs and our transit agencies are able to fulfill. And so we are currently working on scheduling another round of asset mapping meetings with our partners now that we have this more refined list, so that we really can, you know, get into deeper discussions with the specific recommendations that we have identified would need you know, partner assistance to be able to implement, so that we can really figure out what would be possible. So I just wanted to note that that piece.
Right. Okay, Emily, let's keep moving here.
Okay, so number 19 is one that we discussed last month. So I'll just reflect back the changes we made and see if there's any other additional thoughts. So this one is explore creative solutions to ensure accessibility and the connections from multimodal trail to transit location at the elevated station and Hayden Island, including an elevator, ramp, and stairs. Elevators should be designed to accommodate multimodal transit options such as bikes, scooters, etc. And so we added language based on your feedback to reflect explicitly the elevated station and Hayden Island, as well as the explicit mentions of the elevator, ramp, and stairs. We also went to our equity advisory group and shared this and gathered some of their thoughts. And so they had a suggestion of just being explicit that the elevated station is at the Vancouver waterfront. So that's something to consider for folks. And then we also added language about the elevator accommodating the multimodal options. So with that, I'll see if folks have any other thoughts.
Then if you could bring this down so we can see folks again. You gotta love these hybrid meetings, you know, it's like
you don't have to.
Yeah. It's the holidays, what?
Yes, I know. Greg,
Jared.
Greg, this is Ann. I do have a question. Who would be responsible for maintenance and operation of the elevator?
That is a great question. If it's associated with the transit station, it would be a part of the transit O&M cost. If we're talking about a standalone elevator for bike pedestrian, that is a different issue. Once again, the DOTs, and I'll ask Carly and Ryan to verify, we don't do elevators. And to ask the DOTs to do an elevator is something that is not going to be received well. So
I see Paige, maybe we'll get Paige, Triman's perspective here, Friends' perspective.
Thank you. I would like to also add that for security of transit users, TriMet is limiting the use of their elevators to patrons who have fare and fare tickets. So kind of you have to have a paid ticket to be able to make the elevator work. And so to use it for other purposes would have to be a policy shift and negotiation with that agency.
Okay. We'll go to Peter and then Holly.
I think it's really, I totally hear concerns around maintenance. And, having been on the city's parks advisory for many years, saw many situations where beautiful planters were put in place and we had no ability to maintain them and they became weeds. And likewise, one has to be very judicious in putting in toilets or they again become a maintenance nightmare. You can't have zero because these are public spaces and people need a place to relieve themselves. So all that said, I think when it comes to pedestrian multimodal access to the bridge, we have to recognize that the bridge is really high up in the air. And I think it's important to continue to look at the elevator because as I talk to people about how they're going to access this bridge, some people get downright angry and sort of like, wow, if you expect me to get up there and then look at that view and I'm supposed to go 100 feet up in the air. I mean, that's just not physically something I can do. So I realize the sort of the jurisdictional challenges around an elevator, but lots of places in the United States and around the world have them. So, I guess I just hope we just don't dismiss it out of hand because there's no way we could ever maintain it.
Thank you, Holly. Peter and then Michael, and then Scott.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the elevator. Can we find a corporate sponsor that might be willing to take responsibility for something like an elevator, but make it a more interesting type of thing? I'm thinking of the Eye in London, which isn't quite an elevator, but that big Ferris wheel type of thing. But there are places around the world where public facilities are managed by a private group, which gets a benefit out of doing it, obviously. But it might be something that we could look at.
Thank you for that comment. Greg, I don't know if you have a reaction to where might there be sort of those public-private kind of opportunities or any exploration the program might do there?
Yeah, public-private partnerships are always a possibility. But once again, with something like an elevator, and as folks know, those things are touchy. You get kids jumping up and down on like the new elevator in the parking ramp on the waterfront. The first week, kids were jumping up and down on it and shut the elevator down. And getting folks out there to fix those things are expensive. If we could get sponsors, I'm all about it. But I don't want to create a false impression of what DOTs can do as opposed to what they have traditionally done. And anything is possible, but the likelihood with budgets being the way they are, having DOTs take on more O&M that's out of their wheelhouse is, I don't know. I don't know how that flies in either Olympia or Salem.
But Michael and then Holly.
I was just looking for clarification, Janelle. You had said that the previous comment, or we had comments that the elevated station was at the Vancouver waterfront. I just want to clarify there, at least my understanding is there would be elevated stations at both the Vancouver waterfront and the Hayden Island location. And then I just wanted to pass along. I certainly understand the challenge of trying to figure out who's going to maintain and be responsible for the elevator. But obviously there are so many elevators at the L in Chicago and the DC Metro, and and anywhere there's a subway, it just seems like there has to be a solution here, and it just seems like you really can't have the configuration that we're talking about for the light rail or for the bridge without that. So appreciate everybody's creativity and the team's willingness to entertain this admittedly difficult question. Thank you.
Holly and then Scott.
Agreed. And I hear I hear the concerns about maintenance. But at a minimum, I think we have to design the space so that it can be added, even if it isn't there at the beginning. But you don't want to design such that you can never put it in, because I think if you decide not to put one in, I think it will become the people will be not happy. So great, you design such so you can put it in later, and given that there are fiscal realities right now.
Thank you. We'll go to Scott and then Corky.
And this, Scott, I was just offering support for what Holly was saying earlier and what Michael said. Honestly, it feels discriminatory to me if you're going to build a bridge way up in the air and not provide some means of getting up there, except for the most able-bodied citizens. And so I can see people like back in the day chaining themselves to the steps then and saying, I'm not going to allow other people to go up there because you're not allowing everybody to go up there. So anyway, I would expect a protest if you don't put some sort of means for people to get up there. I'm sorry, everybody, I got to run.
Thank you, Scott. Corky?
I think Michael put it really well. We're kind of getting in the weeds, it feels, and looking at the problems that we can't really solve. We have to have elevators. I mean, there's no getting around that. Have to have elevators. It's an interesting point that transit, there will be elevators for transit, but those are not necessarily available for people who don't have a transit ticket. So why don't we just set up an IGA with the transit agencies to maintain the elevators? It's still the responsibility, probably, I don't know, but it's probably the responsibility of the DOTs to manage that IGA and make sure that the IGA is being followed through. But simply go to transit agencies and say, here's some additional money that's coming from your tolls that go to maintenance of the elevators, which you're already doing for your own elevators. That off the top of my head, that seems like a reasonable solution. You could do the same thing with sponsors. What worries me about the idea of like, can we get a sponsor to handle this, is you're getting rid of your problem. The sponsors or a public-private partnership might be a really good solution here. At the same time, we need a government agency that is ultimately responsible for it, that's handling that contract.
So I'm hearing the will of the CBAG is to maintain the elevator language. Obviously, we hear Greg in terms of the hydraulics of what DOTS can or cannot do, but in terms of the recommendation coming from this group, obviously everything will have to be vetted and determine its viability or not. And I just want to just remind folks, our goal is if there are challenges with the existing language, you know, we don't want to spend too much time perhaps necessarily debating the merits of whether we're going to do it or not. You're going to be doing that at the next level here when you vote. But now we're really just trying to refine the language that you've already offered, refine it so that it makes sense from that perspective. I thought I saw another hand up. Did that go down?
John L., this is Steve Witter. I just, Corky Collier kind of got right at it. This is going to, the maintenance of all of these investments is going to require multi-jurisdictional maintenance agreements. And the Portland Mall is a perfect example of where PBOT, TriMet, and some private business all work together to establish some entities to maintain those assets and keep them at a higher level of maintenance than just the city would do on their own or TriMet would do on their own. And so the other thing I would say to second Corky is let's not just always look at the reasons we can't do these things. With our relationship of the Evergreen Terminus and things like that, the city and TriMet and C-Tran are obviously going to have to enter into shared maintenance agreements and things like that. So just to double down on what Corky said, it's been done before.
Thanks for that, Steve. Any wordsmithing recommendations, or are we okay with the language as it currently exists?
So I am good with the language, and the reason I brought this issue to the table is that I just don't want to have folks looking at this issue with rose-colored glasses that it's just going to be a DOT running elevators, because that ain't going to happen. But I like some of the potential solutions put on the table to get there. So I'm fine with the language as you guys have crafted it.
We'll go to Carly and Steve. You mentioned some other kind of creative types of agreements. That might be helpful additional context for perhaps this body as well as others to digest, as the Portland Mall being an example. That might be really interesting to take a look at.
Carly Francis Washout, just as I appreciate Greg sort of putting this plainly, and I would just say on behalf of my side of the river, I know that we regularly disappoint people with the amount of maintenance we are able to provide. The mayor and I spend lots of time talking about it. And so part of this is just to really own that up front, own things that we have capability and tried and true capacity for. And I really appreciate, and I think the idea of exploring what may be possible in way of co-use of things or other relationships is really valuable. It will probably also be complex for us to manage sort of a maintenance agreement or a oversight agreement. But we do those things in other places. So just to say, Greg is doing his due diligence on behalf of the DOTs for having a plain conversation here about what we can and can't do and the real constraints with that. So just to back you up, Greg.
Thank you, Carly. Michael?
With the comment being whether we're okay with the language as is, I'm still confused by the language as is, and think that there's a typo in there when it talks about at the elevated station and Hayden Island. I would think that it should be worded at the elevated stations at the Vancouver waterfront and Hayden Island. So I don't think that it's ideal to leave the language completely as is, at least as shown in the attachment attached to the to the invite for this meeting.
Yeah, we can.
I already updated.
Okay, it's already updated. Josh is already on top of it. Okay, let's.
All right.
Almost Farley.
Yeah, one more just really specific thing. We've got multimodal spelled 2 different ways throughout the document. And if we could spell it the same way.
We will copyright at a soon but later date. Okay, so yes, great. Indeed. Okay, let's move on to the next one. And I just want to do a quick time check. It's 10:37. We're scheduled to break at 11. So if we could all be brief and brilliant, that would be awesome. So that we can get as many of these done as possible.
Thanks, Chanel. And yes, really focus on our any kind of wordsmithing we want to do, so that when we get to our decision making, we've got that all settled and we can move forward with our vote. All right. Now this last one here, So number 24, we already addressed. We've got those updates reflected from our conversation earlier. So then we'll go to number 26. This is also one that we discussed last meeting, and so I'll reflect the changes that we made, and then hopefully we can move through this one a little bit quickly. So the language is to enhance safety for multimodal users crossing the bridge by incorporating protective features into the design with special considerations for medical issues and suicide prevention. And so as part of the discussion and your feedback, we removed the specific mentions about railing and safety nets to make it more general language around protective features, so we can be inclusive of different design solutions there. And then we also added the last section about the considerations for medical issues and suicide prevention. And so, yeah, with that, I will open it up and see if folks have any thoughts or any additional adjustments to the language.
Maybe just a question here. What do we mean by medical issues? Is that too broad? What?
I think the thought there, Janelle, was around some folks mentioned like having one of those emergency call boxes or something like that in case there were any kind of medical emergencies of folks crossing the bridge, and they could have something like that to call for help.
So are we talking about medical emergencies, not medical issues? Is that what we're talking? We'll open it up if we can see the faces. That would be awesome. Thoughts on this one?
Just
Carly.
on your note about medical issues, it might actually just be emergency issues or something, because I mean, I think
For
part of that
emergency
call box,
issues.
I think part of that call
Fire,
box is the
crash.
idea
Okay.
of
Mhm.
something's hinky.
Immediate need.
Yeah.
So emergency issues and suicide prevention. Folks good with that?
Yeah.
Or emergencies, suicide.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, that's great.
You get that, Josh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bring it back up. This is like a work session right here.
It is. It's great.
Yeah, maybe just since we're wordsmithing, maybe we just say emergencies. And again, we could list some specific examples because suicide is an emergency, falls into that same category.
Okay.
So we keep it broad, but list specific things that we're thinking of when we say that.
Right.
All right. So then let's go to physical design number 15. Consider the inclusion of additional connectors such as 4th Plane, 23rd Avenue, and 49th Avenue to ensure all areas are connected. This really does, again, relate to this theme that we've talked about here with connectivity throughout the program area. And so some notes that I had from the technical team for some questions that they wanted to get clarity from you all were that really we needed some more specificity on what's meant by connectors. Is it connecting back into networks? Is it active transportation? So if folks have any kind of clarity or suggestions on how we can get a little more specific, that would be great.
And if we could see the faces team, pull this down. Who wants to kick us off and offer some clarification? Holly.
Just a question, 23rd Avenue, 49th Avenue, where are those? I mean, I know where 33rd Street is and 29th Street, but I'm like, huh?
I think they're misnamed overcrossings, is my guess.
You don't have a 23rd and 49th. We have a 33rd and 39th.
So are we saying what's meant was 33rd and 29th?
39th.
39th?
Oh, hold it.
33rd and 29th are overcrossings of I-5 between 4th Plane and 39th. So those are likely, since 4th Plane is
referenced.
So Carly, the
Yeah.
39th is an overpass, but it's not being changed.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like, my assumption is connectors means like making sure there's kind of good interaction with multimodal stuff on either side, and that we're meeting city standards across those bridges that in places where we're making changes to bridges.
Which
Where we're
those,
making changes.
Yeah, if we're not gonna touch it, we're probably not gonna fix it.
well, 29th, 33rd and 4th Plane all have active transportation enhancements as part of the program.
Right.
So it's,
that's already included as part of the design. I don't know if connectors means the lead up to those enhancements.
Yeah, I
as
don't,
you
I don't remember
expand.
what this is all
Yeah,
about.
does anyone remember, or this came from someone in this group or one of the small groups? Does anyone have
Inclusion,
reminder?
all areas are.
I'm seeing none. Because
I
the
think
other,
Oh, go ahead.
the other option is if we don't remember, we just remove it. That's not, we've got plenty of other recommendations here. Are folks okay just removing this item? Okay, I'm seeing, yeah, okay. So we're saying we're gonna remove it, so let's remove this one. Okay, let's go to the next one, Emily.
All right, so then our next one is physical design 17, and I'll read this off as we're getting the chart pulled up. The language is to create a community garden near the waterfront as part of bridge design to serve as a resource for local residents. And so some notes I had here from our technical team were that, this is not normally part of the scope for these type of projects. It does go a bit beyond landscaping and those typical designs. And if it's meant to be interactive, it would require maintenance and would need partnership with program partners and some of those other jurisdictions. And then some notes from the community advisory group. Also, we're kind of wondering about whether this is feasible, if it's kind of outside of the scope. And we're also interested in what type of garden. And so, Greg, I think you had offered some really great insight or example of where there's been something kind of similar done before. So I'd love to invite you to share a little bit of thoughts on that if you'd like.
Right, we could.
Yeah, I've seen partnership with master gardener groups who, if they are provided the plantings, they will provide the labor and the upkeep for facilities like that. That happens, I know, in rest areas around the country where master gardeners will come in and they will receive the plant material, they'll plant it, and then they'll maintain it for the year. So, and it's generally a no cost situation, just a permit for them to get in there and do the work. But I don't know if there's a master gardener group here in the region that would have interest of doing something like that, but that would be the way I think you could help facilitate something like that.
Thank you, Greg. Carly.
Just a note that in the currently master gardener upkept Welcome to Washington sign, we have experienced significant challenges maintaining water to that site, in part because it's some water line that runs under the highway. Sometimes we have a hard time locating it. So just noting that the sort of infrastructure, like whatever the infrastructure is to support that, also needs to be considered. So the maintenance of the space actively is one thing, but also providing the resource that supports it is challenging at times. So would need to be considered.
Very challenging.
We'll go to Paige and then we'll go to the mayor. And then Peter.
I just want to note, love the community garden thing, have tried to advocate for it, long projects myself. A key thing to think about is an insuring entity. That's who would be the person that insures it. That's where I kind of had a heartbreaking situation in which one fell apart. So finding a nonprofit or something like that that's willing to do that is a key part of the success of that.
Thank you, Paige. We'll go to the mayor and then Ann.
All of this kind of falls under the idea of programming the area under the freeway that has never been there before. And we really have not had that discussion. There's going to be a lot of land. Yes, some of that is road. But as we look at it, there is new dirt under the freeway with pillars and everything else that we have not discussed or designed. So that conversation needs to happen.
What a potential recommendation to put language into PD 17 that gets to what you're saying, Mayor?
Yeah, because it's not just as Paige pointed out, we've had a number of community gardens that have gone to hell in a basket when the kid goes off to college and had promised to come back every year to take care of that thing. So I would change that to all of the area underneath the freeway and how it's going to be programmed, who's responsible for it, what it looks like, whether it's art on the pillars, whether it's rhododendrons on a sprinkler system. But that whole area underneath the bridges on the Vancouver side needs to be discussed.
We'll go to Peter and then Paige.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I hope when we're talking about community gardens, we're not talking about food, raising something to eat, because I don't want eat any produce that's been contaminated by exhaust fumes from vehicles. So hopefully we're talking about landscaping by community groups. I mean, there are examples where there groups that maintain a rose garden at the park or something like that. That makes sense.
Great. Other thoughts?
Peter, you don't want exhaust fumes with your cucumbers? Good point.
Harley?
Yeah, I like what Marianne was saying about programming underneath the bridge. So I agree with that kind of pivot for this. And I think as part of that, we could incorporate language around community engagement or participation more broadly. So a community garden, again, I keep going back to this broad thing where there's examples of specifics. So program the area under the bridge with opportunities for community engagement and participation, an example of which would be a garden.
Got that, Josh? Okay. Are folks okay with that approach?
But it could also be an ice skating rink or a skateboard rink too.
Okay, we will wordsmith that.
Change that whole, yeah.
Yeah, I would just like to say, let's not get too drilled down on the under the bridge part, because there will be other perhaps adjacent areas that will be in need of landscaping and community management and creating those partnerships in perhaps other areas beyond just under the bridge. So hopefully we can be a little more broad than that.
But Tom, I see what you're saying. The space outside of that belongs to the city and the port and the fort. Underneath that belongs to federal highways, WashDOT, and everybody else. I want to have all of our groups have the conversation. What is going to go on underneath the bridge, underneath the freeway? Because we've never had that space before. And when you're starting to put pillars and everything else underneath there, it needs to have a wide conversation, because we'll probably be required to maintain it.
Well, I'm just feeling like there's areas on the Oregon side, perhaps, that are not in exactly the same boat, but that are available for community use that are within the footprint. I don't know what they are specifically, but I'm just suggesting that there might be room for that as well.
And Oregon can do their side.
And I think something that could help here, I definitely hear you, Tom, and I think we have some other recommendations that, you know, our group has worked through previously, where we've talked explicitly about making sure that we explore all the opportunities for creating landscaping and green spaces throughout the program area where there's opportunity to do so. So I think that what you're hoping to see really is captured in that language.
That's fine then. I feel like this particular one then is a little bit redundant, but if we want to drill it down on the under the bridge stuff, then I'm okay with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's really important to identify the bridge or under the bridge, because that's an area that will be a hazard unless it's specifically addressed. And so, Tom, I think we're all kind of agreeing with you that the other areas have been broadly addressed and we have a good approach for those. But if we don't address under the bridge specifically, we're going to have a big issue.
Yeah, there's some really interesting things you can look at internationally, just in terms of urban design of what occurs with these new spaces underneath the bridge. You know, really cool. Okay, I think we've got enough commentary there. Let's go to the last one.
All right, great. All right, Fabian, if you could please pull up the chart. So our last one, physical design 18, design team to consider advanced signage on the bridge, including digital displays along the shared use path, displaying relevant information and real-time updates and enhancing a sense of place. And so what some considerations that I had from our technical teams again were just some different considerations about things like sign clutter and not wanting to put too much on the bridge and the paths. And then another question would be again this piece around maintenance, right? Who is maintaining the signs? Who is responsible for digital content? And so a potential solution could be, and in alignment with what I've heard this group think through, is maybe it's more installing, stations or a conduit or kind of a space where future technology could be installed later on. And I know this group has really pushed the program to want to think about, future technology and advancements there. So wanted to open that up for folks' thoughts.
Yeah, if we could pull it down so we can see folks. Okay, questions, thoughts on this one, refinement?
So just a comment, if folks have examples of what they're talking about, what type of real-time information are you trying to convey to the bicyclists, walkers, rollers? What does that mean, I guess?
Any more specificity from this group we can have on this particular one? Because it's a little broad.
And just as a note for that too, we do have, I know wayfinding comes up quite a bit. We do have a number of recommendations that speak to wayfinding. So I think this would be looking to see out if it's something outside of wayfinding that maybe they'd be looking to see addressed on these.
Yeah, and the wayfinding is static signs, but it sounded like they want these to be dynamic signage with real-time messaging. I just want to know what the messages are. Written on a lot of pathways, and I've never had need for a electronic message.
We'll go to Janie, Peter, Ryan.
So my thoughts on this would potentially be weather conditions, wind conditions, things like that, where if it's going to impact users that might be of concern, just giving them advanced warning or notification.
Peter?
Yeah, I've seen a sign on, I think it's on the beach path in Long Beach, California, that just says, counts the numbers of people who have gone by, which is really kind of fun. Just want to suggest it as a possibility, and that's definitely a real-time thing, because as you go by, you're added to the number.
Oh no, mine's not relevant any longer. I recall the conversation around this around the transit stations specifically, and wanting the dynamic signs around when are the trains coming, all those types of things. I didn't recall that there was any conversation about this being on the wayfinding, but I'm hearing now that there is, and there's some specific requests around it. So.
Yeah, I also don't see on here that this is specific to like active transportation or multimodal. I think this is pretty broad, and I'm okay with that, but I think it's not specifically calling out pedestrians or bikes. It could also include car traffic.
Is there additional thoughts or guidance on this one, or we can kind of refine it based on what we've heard? Greg, were you going to say something?
No, I'm all set.
Okay.
All right. And so we are going to take a quick break, about 10-minute break, and our team is going to wrap up our kind of track changes edits that we will display to you all when we come back from the break, so that you can see all the changes we made based on the discussion today, and then we can move forward to our FISTA 5 decision making. So
and Emily, maybe before the break, just give folks a foreshadow of what's going to happen when they come back.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So when we come back, like I said, we'll display the language. We will, show all the changes there, make sure everything has been captured. And then Jonelle is going to remind folks of our instructions for our 5-to-5 voting. And then we will proceed with that. And we will, once again, as we did in the last meeting, we're going to vote through all of them as a batch together, rather than one by one.
Then you will be done for today.
Well, I'd like to wish everybody happy holidays, whichever holidays you celebrate. I have to run. Gotta see a man about an airplane. So you guys have a great day, and we'll see you in the new year.
Happy holidays,
Happy holidays,
guys. Safe
Greg.
travels.
Okay,
Thank
so we
you.
will be back here at 11:10. So go ahead and take a quick break.
Yeah, because we've got to get right.
Mary, do you have fun plans for the holiday?
Not until after, between the holidays, so we'll take the.
If we could go to the next slide, I'll go over. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to go through just a reminder. Of course, you all are experts at the modified consensus decision-making model at this point, but we'll go through these real quickly. The team, they were wordsmithing during the break based upon the feedback they received from all of you. And so we'll go through that in just a bit. And then we're going to ask for each of you to participate in voting. As a reminder, we participate via the modified consensus voting process. And the fist, as a reminder, is no way. One is hold on. We need to discuss this. 2, I have reservations but could be convinced. 3, I'm okay with it. 4, sounds good. And 5 is love it. Any 0, 1, and 2s will be provided the opportunity to explain the reasoning. Again, our goal is to reach consensus. So with that, let me turn it over. Emily, am I turning it over to you next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, thank you very much. So I'm going to ask my team if we could please screen share our document here where we've been taking notes with the track changes and the updated language. So I'm gonna, once we get it up here, I'm gonna read it all out for you. We have our track changes there, so you can see everything that that we updated and make sure that it all looks right. After that, we'll accept all of our changes and then we'll move to our voting. So starting with
real quickly, Emily, can we just
Sure.
make it just a tad bit larger? Just for
accessibility.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Okay. Yeah. All right. There we
Yes,
go. Thank
and
you.
can we please scroll down just a little bit? Okay, there we go. All right, so starting with mobility and accessibility number 21, design team to integrate sensory enhancements such as auditory, touch, proprioceptive, etc. in designs to better accommodate individuals with disabilities, ensuring clear wayfinding. And then next we struck number 23. Scroll down, please. Number 19, explore creative solutions to ensure accessibility in the connections from multimodal trail to transit stations at the elevated stations on Vancouver waterfront and Hayden Island, including an elevator, ramp, and stairs. Elevators should be designed to accommodate multimodal transit options such as bikes, scooters, etc. Scroll down, please. And we'll give folks an opportunity to raise their hand if you have any anything we missed. Number 24, enhance multimodal connectivity to trails, including but not limited to the 40-mile loop and existing trails at the North Portland Marine Drive interchange and City of Vancouver waterfront, making trails intuitive to traverse and well supported, such as access to shelters, water, and bathrooms. Number 26, enhance safety for multimodal users crossing the bridge by incorporating protective features into the design with special considerations for emergencies such as suicide prevention, medical assistance, etc., and rain, sun, shelter. Please scroll down. And then we removed number 15. Scroll down. Number 17, consider programming and design for all land underneath and adjacent to the new bridge footprint with opportunities for community participation, which could lead to new community investments such as a community non-edible garden. Sorry, it's hard for me to read with the track changes there. And then the final one is number 18, design team to consider advanced signage on the bridge, including digital displays along the shared use path, displaying relevant information and real-time updates and enhancing a sense of place. So with
Questions, comments, thoughts, the mayor?
On 17, we have just adjacent to the bridge. Do we assume freeway and bridge are all combined? Because there'll be a lot of freeway up in the air.
Do we want to just specify that adjacent to the bridge
Or
and freeway?
the project, and that includes everything under the project?
So would that be project footprint?
That makes sense.
Does that work? Okay.
All right. Any other thoughts from folks before we accept changes and move to voting?
And Emily, we'll rely on you to call folks on the screen because we can't see folks while we have setting up.
Yes, no problem.
None here.
All right, so I think now we'll go ahead and so that we can we can see each other and we can see folks' hands for the voting. We'll go ahead and pull down the share screen. And so as Janelle moves us through the voting, we're going to vote for all of these together in one batch, and then we'll ask folks to keep your hands up so that we can make sure we record everything. So with that,
we will open it up now again, fist to 5. So we're voting on the whole tranche here. So, all right, at this point, please. Yes. Okay. Checking, make sure capturing everyone, and the team is recording now. Force, let me tell you,
all right, I've got our virtual folks. All right.
Awesome work. Okay, let's keep moving to the next component here. Next slide, please. Slide.
Appreciate you, Fabian. I know we've had a lot of switching back and forth between different documents, so I appreciate your help here.
All right, you can go to the next slide, Fabian. Okay, just a reminder, we've got some upcoming activity here relative to the CBAG work plan. Emily, you want to kind of walk through folks with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So now we will move to our last tranche, which is tranche 4. And this is one where we've got our items that are, we're less time sensitive in terms of meeting some of those kind of critical deadlines for the environmental process and design. And so we will spend the next few months working through those, and that will give us plenty of time to dig into the details. We also, as I mentioned before, are going to be doing another round of the asset mapping meetings. And so we're hoping that we can bring in some of that information as well to help inform these discussions, since a number of the recommendations are really going to be those that are outside of DOT scopes, pieces around housing development, things like that. So we just encourage folks to come with some creative ideas and get ready to dig into that. So with that, we can go to the next slide.
And just a reminder, we have an executive steering group meeting on January 21st from 3 to 5. And then our next Community Benefits Advisory Group meeting will be on January 23rd. And that will be in Vancouver at the IBR office. And with that, I'd love to invite the mayor to offer any closing remarks.
Oh, thank you so very much for giving us your time today. Happy holidays, and hopefully we have a nice mild winter down in the valley and lots of snow up in the hills.
Great.
Amen.
Well, thank you all. Have a wonderful holiday and we'll see you all soon. Thanks again for your work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Baking any grapes pies or?
All right.
I know.
I'm baked up tonight. Yeah, my, I think I need a new oven.
You got bacon, huh?
Bacon.
You don't bake every day.
You know,